Yes.
Yeah. And so, everybody could see my life falling apart and, my life imploding and exploding at the same time. And so then, like I've lost my job, I've lost my husband, and then, I'm in psych wards, in psych admissions, and that become like a revolving door. And I was so angry and I was screaming all the time and I was just so desperately hurt and didn't know what to do. So I just upped the use that I was having. And by this stage, like ice comes along because I couldn't get speed anymore, and I hated
Wow.
ice, but I couldn't stop. And, so like I lose all this stuff and then I become homeless, because my dad had a stroke and he had to sell the house that I was living in. And so I moved in
Yep.
with another partner that I walked out of my marriage into a new relationship that was just another hostage relationship that was worse than the last.
Yeah.
And then me and him used a lot. And so, I remember being in, the psychiatric ward on my first anniversary out of, separating from my ex-husband, because we separated on my girl's third birthday, in front of all of our friends,
Yeah.
spectacularly. And
Oh,
and
no.
so I become a single parent with, who was working full time and didn't know how to look after myself or my kids, and so I was using flat out to do everything, and
Yep.
and so my parents said, hey, how about you come and let the kids spend the night here so that, they don't have to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and you can get ready and go to work and you'll be okay. And so I said, yep, that was meant to be for one night. And like 9 years later,
Oh, my God.
I didn't have my children in my custody for like 9 years. So, because what happened then is that I'm isolated and I'm alone. I'm in four walls by myself, alone in my head, which is a dangerous place for an addict to be. And I went, what am I going to
100%.
do? I'm going to go use.
Yep.
And so
Yep.
I
So
was,
did you lose your children by government intervention or just through your parents taking on care of them?
yeah. So there was reports made by DHS back then about me
Yep.
from my ex-husband and other their family members and other people that could see I was losing my shit all the time. And they would step
Yes.
out, my parents were around, they would step out. And, so family court got involved. So my ex-husband tried to take the custody of my children, but because he was using as well, there was like a three-way fight between them, my parents, me,
Yes.
and him. And so the court said, Emma, you can have, custody of your children, but you've got to live with your parents. Now, at this stage,
Yes.
like I'm in my early 30s and I'm like, I'm not, we tried it. It was so turbulent and so toxic and so chaotic
Yeah.
that I couldn't stay there. And so I would go and use and I would come back intoxicated and I just couldn't do it, and so
Yep.
I ended up
You
moving.
can't do everything simultaneously. There needs to be a line drawn.
Yeah.
So perhaps other people can set boundaries.
Yeah, but every time I'd have an argument with my mum, she goes, "Well, if you don't calm down, I'm just going to call the cat team." And so,
Yeah.
never in the history of telling anybody to calm down does anyone calm down. And so, I would elevate and escalate really, really quickly, and the police would get called.
Yep.
And so I'm then kicked out of the house, and a lot of the time it's like nobody's hearing me. No one's listening to what I'm trying to say. You're trying to do this. I'm trying to do this. I'm the parent. Let me try and parent, but I was incapable, So I was extremely angry at my parents and the system and everybody else because I'm blaming everybody else but myself. And so I'm looking for any excuse to just shut off, cause an argument, get out of there and go use, So that's what I did. And so I move in with this person and he used to work away and then he stopped working away and we become homeless, And so drugs have taken over significantly. We're in this homeless situation. I'm using flat out all the time. I'm in family court. My support person at family court is my drug dealer.
Oh, God.
I'm living in a tin shed with no door, rats and spiders out the back of her house, no toilet, mind you, no electricity in the middle of summer.
Yeah.
It was horrific, yeah. But
Yeah. I can
in this chaotic mess, like I just kept using, and everyone saying, just stop. Okay, like how do I
Yes.
stop? You know, I didn't know how to stop.
So there was you've explained your downfall, I suppose, and all the experiences you've got to get to there. Do you believe in the concept of a rock bottom?
Oh yeah, I had many of them though. I remember
Yeah.
being in counselling appointments and they go, "Can you get any lower, Emma?" And I'm like, "Hang on a minute,
Yeah.
just watch this." You know,
Yeah.
because for me, like my rock bottom, it seemed like I had a rock bottom and then another one would happen. And I'm like, I've still got
Yeah.
more that I can have taken off me, you know, like I'm literally left with absolutely nothing. You know, like I remember being in multiple psychiatric facilities and not in just normal population, like I would be in maximum security psych hospitals, and I would walk out of there into general population, sit down for 2 seconds, and someone go, "Hey, do you want some ice?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure."
Yeah.
And then I would bring it into
Yeah.
that. So even in my lowest rock bottom point in a psychiatric facility, I'm still getting drugs in. I don't know how they think that like this same person would visit me 5 times a day for no reason.
Yeah.
And I would walk out with a
Yeah.
7 grand debt. Like,
Yeah.
you know, and so
I feel like I feel like losing your mind would appear to be like physical possessions, you could always lose more.
yeah. Oh,
Um, but I feel like your mind is something that once you've lost that, that appears to me to be a true rock bottom.
for me, like I was so stuck in my head. And so, like, I knew that side of crazy. To get past that
Yeah.
other side and out the other side, I had to go back through that. And it was a horrific place to be. You know, like, so I'm
Yeah.
counterbalancing like the psych wards. I'm on a CTO, so a community treatment order, right? And so
Yeah.
I'm getting medicated with all kinds of medications to the point of drooling, all right? Getting injection, chemically restrained, physically detained, like all those things. And then on top of that, I'm counterbalancing with a shit ton of methamphetamines and
Yeah.
psychotics. And I would say to them, "You're killing me." And they're going, "No, you're killing yourself. We legally have
Yeah.
to give you this." And so I'm going through like this separation from my kids and I didn't want to be alive. So I'm taking like 1900 milligrams of Seroquel. And I'd have that and I would go to sleep. And then when I would wake up, I'd just have that same lot again. Now I was doctor shopping and saying to a doc, like, you know, "Oh, they said this much, they say that much, gimme, gimme, gimme." And because I was so
Yes.
mentally unwell, mate, they just kept feeding it to me, which was sending me
Wow.
crazy.
Yeah.
And then it was affecting my physical health. Like I couldn't even walk from here to the wall without me having like a heart attack because I couldn't breathe. Like I was just like
Wow.
all the time. um,
Yeah.
you know,
And this is from drugs that have been prescribed to you, prescription drugs.
on top of, you know,
Yep.
on top of the amphetamine, like the illegal drugs that I was having.
Yes.
So, but it wasn't little quantities, and so like I would walk out of the psych ward with a big shopping bag full of like, you know, Lanzapines and Seroquels and carbamazepines and temazepines and all the pains to try and stop me
Yep.
from going so insane. But I was so insane from everything that was happening. Instead of somebody stopping and looking what holistically was happening to me, realizing that I'm living on the street, I'm living in a hotel room, and I'm doing things on the street in order to survive, you know. So that's where stuff like prostitution comes in, and you know, crime and more violence. And so instead of going, well, how can we support her externally, instead of just drugging me some more, you know, like it was
Yeah.
and being in the family court system, and I couldn't tell anybody because, you know, everything was subpoenaed by the courts, you know. So when I did
Yeah.
tell them that I was on drugs and seek help professionally, everything was subpoenaed, even from when I was 15. You know, so
Yeah.
like it become nowhere was safe for me to get support, you know. And so I would go and get my community treatment ordered medication and then go counterbalance that with a gram of ice. You know,
So
yeah.
how did you get better?
How did I get better? Yeah. You know, like I become so unwell that I had no choice but to get better or die.
Yeah.
You know, like I was so insane that I went to end my life. And so I screamed, like there was something that kept at me, right? I kept seeing glimpses of something greater than myself showing up in my life. And when I
Yep.
was in the hospital, they would say, "Do you hear voices?" And I'm like, "Yep." And they go, "What does it say?" And I'd say my name. And they're like, "What?" And I say, "Yep,
Yep.
it says my name in different ways, you know." Besides the negative self-talk, that's what I would hear, you know. And they told me I was schizoaffective disorder, bipolar, type 1, rapid 2 cycling, all this stuff. But what I now
Yes.
know is a spiritual awakening. You know, I was being called and I was being called by name, you know. And so
Yeah.
for me, you know, I was incredibly unwell. I went to end my life one night. I screamed out to something greater than myself to save me. It was 2 o'clock in the
Yes.
morning and I got 2 messages, one asking for 5 minutes of my time and one asking if I was okay. The first one I
Yeah.
said, "No, it's my last 5 minutes, but you can have it." And the other one said, "I'm going to hang myself and I'm going to die." And, you know,
Yeah.
and so that 5 minutes turned to 3 hours. My phone went flat. It started to rain. And I went home and I was living in a squat in
Oh.
Springvale at the time. And,
Yep.
my family cut me off. I was, the court case was over. I'd lost all my rights. I was on a limited phone call. I only had short visits, you know, and I had to be supervised at all times. And I was told I would always be on that, you know. And so, I went to, when I went to die, like there was nothing left for me. Like that was my rock
Yeah.
bottom. Like I found my partner cheating on me and I went, is there anything else that can like really go wrong? Like I'm doing the worst of the worst in order to survive and keep him alive as well. And this is what
Yeah.
happened to me, you know, all poor
Yeah.
stuff. And so I went back home after trying to end my life and you know, like I tried to detox for a couple of weeks and I was so sick. I tried to come off everything and I went to the hospital and the hospital said I was detoxing to go home. And so I went, "I'll
Yeah.
show you detoxing." And so I went and called my dealer and he come around and he brought my normal amount and I had half a gram all at once and I collapsed on the floor. Now, I would use so often that this dealer would sit out the front of my house and he would wait for 10 minutes because he'd expect the call. And then when he'd come in, he'd
Wow.
hide stuff around for me and then he would ring me and tell me where it is. But I'd already ripped the house
Oh,
apart looking for it. Like that's the insanity of what my use looked like, you know? And
wow.
so this night that I had it, like I had it all at once and I hadn't had it for a period of time. And so I dropped on the floor and I woke up in a pile of spew, you know, and I was
Yep.
violently shaking so badly. And I crawled on my belly to my phone. I rang my mum. And I didn't know that they'd blocked me on the mobile, so I rang the home phone, and I
Oh,
told my mum that I was really unwell and to come and get me, and she said she couldn't. She said I can't do that anymore, and I said if you don't come and see me, I'm going to die tonight. And she goes, "Look, I'll come and visit, but that's about as much as I can do." I said, "I don't care, just come, you know." So my mum come in, she
yeah.
found me. I was basically like I was shaking so badly, you know, I was in full on DTs and I remember grabbing her skirt and looking at her and going, "Don't let me die." I said, "If I survive tonight, I promise I'll never use again. Just don't let me die." And my mum walked out, she rang
Wow.
my dad and she said, "We're going to take you home." And I'm 6'2.5", my mum's 5'7", and I remember her kind of like carrying me out to the car. And I was just shaking so bad, but I couldn't walk properly. I couldn't talk properly. I'd fried my brain in that moment so badly, like I couldn't regulate my body temperature. I was so unwell. I couldn't sleep properly, like and I was literally dying in those moments. And I used methadone to come off the ice, so my body was just in chaos. And you know, and then I had to come off the methadone, which is a whole different story. But I remember my
But
mum.
in that horrific moment
Yeah,
where you thought you were going to die, you grabbed your mum's skirt
yeah,
and you looked at her
yeah.
and you said, "What did you say?
I
Take me
just said,
home and
let
I'll
me
never use
die.
again."
Yeah, I said if she took me home, I would promise I'd never use again. And she goes, "I'm going to take you home." And so she takes me
Wow.
home and my kids are there, and my daughters, they were only 7 or something. They were spoon feeding me jelly and fruit at the time because I couldn't lift my head off the pillow for about 3 weeks. That happened, and like a power spewed orange juice over my poor son one day, and I'm crying, he's laughing. He goes, "You got to get it out somehow, Mum," and but I was just such a mess, and but I got
Yeah.
another day clean. And then I got another day
Yes.
clean, and I couldn't sleep, and I know all these things that happens when your body goes into chaos, and but then I'm stuck in the insanity of no drugs in myself, and all I wanted to do was still die. And so, there were
Yes.
multiple suicide attempts. And, but I remember this one time when I allowed myself to feel the full effect of what my addiction had done, and the fact that I'd lost my children to drugs was so soul crushing. And I was 3 months in recovery, and for the first time in my life, I didn't want to die. I just wanted to be well enough for them,
Yeah.
and that realization was that cracking of the glow stick where, like it gave me this fight and this will for my life to keep going. And so like I started going to church. Oh, I'm a big
Yeah.
praise Jesus, thank you for saving me, because I'm only here by God's grace, my friend. I can assure you of that right now. And so I started going to church. I went back to school. I studied justice and legal services because I wanted to get my kids back. So I thought that I would go and do
Yeah.
that myself. But I'd tag my mum and dad in all my milestones. And so what happened was the lawyer who took them away from me was also friends with my mum on Facebook, and she watched me get well. So she reached out and said that
Wow.
she worked for women's legal services and wanted to help me get my kids back. And so then
Yeah.
started the next round of the court hearings. And so for the next 4 years, like I was fighting to get my kids back. And, out of that, I resulted with, all my children back in my care. I got all my rights back. I went back to study some more, and I did AOD, and I went and found NA through a lady at the local milk bar who said, "Hey, like I'm an alcoholic, can you help me?" And I said, "Oh, how's that?" And she goes, "Will you come with me to a meeting? Of people like me and you." And I walked in and I found people like me, and I heard my story in that room. I heard other parents that had lost their children. I heard other women who had prostituted themselves. I found other people that were just as nuts as me. But
Yeah. Yeah.
apparently I was batshit crazy when I first walked in. I still am a little. Um, you
It's the similarities and not the differences,
yeah,
isn't it?
yeah, that's it.
I just want to ask you
Yep,
a couple of questions there. It'll recap
yep,
what you've answered, but I just want to ask you the question and then you to go
yep.
back over it. So, Emma, tell me how Facebook played a part in your recovery.
Yeah, absolutely. So what I would do is that I would go on all those recovery sites, and I would like,
Yep.
guess who's clean another day, and then I would post my story, and I would like posts, and so I was posting all these recovery stuff. So and Jesus posts, right? So two double sided, and so I lost a lot
Yeah.
of friends for my Jesus posts, and then gained a lot of friends for my recovery posts. But what I was doing was
Yeah.
I was tagging my parents, and their friends were congratulating me and cheering me on from the sidelines. And there was a
Yeah.
couple of people in particular that kept going, "Go, Emma, you can do this. It's good."
Yeah.
People would reach out to me, and, and because I'm going to church as well, like I found connection there and people that were cheering me on too. And so I started to find friends in recovery. I started sharing my truth in all its insanity, because it was very, very insane what my life looked like. And for the first 2 years of my recovery, I was still very much insane, my friend, trust me. But I
and tell me about how religion plays a part in your recovery.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Like, I put God first, so I'm never last, and so I had
Yep.
this profound spiritual awakening, right? So rang my mum one time in when I was in the end of my using, right? I told her that I would not put my children until I was in the kingdom of heaven and to pray for us. And my mum thought I was going to go homicidal and suicidal and called the CAT team and the police on me. All right.
Wow.
So next minute, the police kick in my doors, the ambulance is there, the whole Monash CAT team, 2 forensic psychiatrists, a counsellor. All these people are sitting in this tiny little house that I'm in a share house, right? Anyway, I told them that I was the Antichrist and I was kicking off end of days. I told them that Donald Trump would become president of the United States of America. They laughed at me and said that would never happen. Well, hello, twice. Okay. So I'm telling them that I'm the Antichrist, right? And they're going, what's going on here? But the fact of the matter was, James, I was so far from Christ like it wasn't funny. I was everything that wasn't of good. I was everything that was so horrible and bad in this world. Like all the things that you shouldn't do, including thou shalt not kill, mate, I've done. All right. So it's and kill, I mean, in a different context. And that's an abortion for me. I believe that's killing. But so everything that wasn't godly, I had become. And so they took that as, oh my God, we need to lock this chick up for 11 days. But what was happening is that my higher power was showing them to me in a massive dramatic way. But in between them coming and my mum calling the police and them arriving, I'd sat on my bed and I said, I do not know what I've done to not enter the kingdom of heaven, but for whatever I've done, I'm truly sorry. Next minute, mate, it was like lightning hit me and I went flying across on my bed and it was like this universal energy was smashing me over and over and over again. And every time I went to get up, I would have more realizations about where my place in the world was. And I'm so insignificant, but so incredibly connected to everything universal, but still like in this small space at the center of it all. It's the most profound experience ever. The closest I've heard.
So it's physical and mental?
Yeah, it was like this physical wave of energy. The closest I've heard anybody explain it is Jim Carrey. So if you ever hear how he had his spiritual experience, almost identical. And so this incredible, powerful force, which I now know as being called as baptized in fire or a Kundalini awakening, but something opened up and I went, I have no idea what that was, but what that was is that it opened me up into the spiritual realm and my connection with a higher power, and I allowed it in. And so I boxed it. I went, I don't know what that was, but I boxed it into what I now call Jesus, So for me, surrendering over to something greater than myself is the cornerstone of my recovery. I pray through whatever I can. I fall to my knees to get lifted up because for me, mate, it's the only thing that worked. When I come off the methadone, I heard this voice say to me, I was in so much pain. After 8 days, and I heard this voice go get a Valium off your dad, you'll be okay. And I went, I don't want it. Just go get one, you'll be okay. And I went, I don't want drugs, But then I heard this other voice that was a still, quiet voice that said, Emma, get up, go have a shower, get dressed and let you sleep on the couch. And I went, I'm not listening to you either. Just let me sleep. And I was screaming for an hour in so much pain, begging for this pain to stop, and the voice going, just get a Valium, and this other voice saying, go have a shower. And so I got up, I slid on my belly, I went into the shower, I turned the hot water on until it ran cold, and I got up, I got dressed, and I went and laid on the couch. And I can tell you right now, my friend, I put my head on that pillow and I woke up 8 hours later with not one bit of pain. And I woke up with this sense of wholeness that I've never experienced in my life. And that God-shaped hole was filled with something I'd never known. And so for me, in that moment was a point of surrender. I could have gone and taken the drugs. I could have gone and got the Valium and taken away that pain. But in that moment, I reached to God and I surrendered over my addiction, because what he said to me on that bed that made me do it was, would you lay your life down for me? And I said 100%. And it told me again to get up and go have that shower. And that's what I did. And I took my first direction, And so,
so how do you That's amazing. How do you touch into that
Yeah.
now in your recovery?
Yeah, so I still go to church twice on Sundays. I do service,
Yeah.
but I also share my story with people. I do I do podcasts, I go to universities, and I
Yeah.
share my truth about
Amazing.
what God's done in my life. Because, but by the
Yeah.
grace of God, my friend, do I sit here today. I've had too many miracles happen in my life. So I give all the praise and the glory to that. And I know that NA's you're God of your own understanding, and that is my understanding, is that something greater than myself that I choose to call God is what saved me.
Yes.
And so I
Yeah.
continue to pray. I do fasting. I went into a 5-day fast and didn't talk. Now, anyone that knows me knows I can talk and I can eat.
Yeah.
Oh my God. But you know what I wanted? I wanted God to move in my life more. I wanted my children back in my life and my care. I wanted things to happen. But in order for that to happen, I had to move out of the way and let God in. So
Mm.
by doing these practices and allowing God to take over my life, allow God to move, like to the point that I got my children back. I had a barrister named Kath Devine. Like, stuff like this that happened should never have happened, mate. I have a
Yeah.
beautiful
Yeah.
4-bedroom home, a brand new car. I have a job that's absolutely incredible where I get to use my lived experience to share with the still suffering addict that flies me all over the
Yeah.
countryside to do that. Like, it is the opportunities that have been presented to me is because I have faith in the power of something greater than myself.
Mm.
And so I
Amazing.
surrender that over daily, mate. I have to, but I don't always get it right. My anger's still
Yeah.
there
Yeah.
sometimes. I can still be, my kids, they go through their own stuff. One daughter doesn't want to talk to me right now, and that's okay, but I keep giving her to God, mate, and I keep praying over her life, and because they don't believe. I wasn't brought up
Yes.
in a believing
Yeah.
household. I was brought up in an atheist home. So for me to go
Yeah.
from absolute disbelief and hatred of God, because I hated God at one stage, to
Yes.
absolute, like, oh, I'm like, I have mosquitoes flying off, mate. I'm covered in the blood of Jesus, mate. Like, because that's what I
Yeah.
have to do to survive. And
Yeah.
everybody says it was me. No, mate. I just put in the human action, but God does the work in my life.
Mm.
And
It's
I'm
that's a beautiful way of putting it, and it's really interesting to hear because I used to think that God with a beard was really confronting and hard for me to build a connection with. And through the program that I work, it is a God of my own understanding. And I often find, and I don't know whether it's my demographic or whatever it is, that their spiritual connection tends to work closer towards the trees outside that I look at, or the waves at the beach, or the sand under my feet, or the red dirt of the outback, or Bunjil in the sky, or the Buddha, or the cross legged yoga, whatever it is, or the third eye, or whatever. It's really beautiful and refreshing to hear that it is, your version of Jesus.
yeah,
And that form of an awakening and a connection is really beautiful to hear.
thank
And
you.
and I love to see your love of Jesus. It's really beautiful.
Thank you. And I remember when I first walked into the rooms, right, and I saw God on the wall, and a lot of people get frightened by that, right? But I went, oh my God,
Yeah, of
God,
course.
right? I'm all up in my
I love that guy.
I love Jesus. And this person walks up to me and goes, yeah, we don't talk about that around here. And I'm like, what? They
Yeah,
go, yeah, you bringing your Jesus thing in here? And I'm like, and I couldn't understand the concept of a greater power of their own understanding, because I'm like,
yes.
isn't that everybody's higher power? And
Yeah,
in Jesus, and then I got explained, no, like some people, whatever that looks like for them. And I'm like, oh, okay. I still talk Jesus, mate. I turned like a lot of people
yeah,
either loved
yeah,
me or hated me, but I spoke my truth.
yeah.
Yeah, because
Mm,
for me, that is the cornerstone of my recovery. That and fellowships. Like and another reason why I went to church is because I found a group of people who loved me when I couldn't love me. There was a group of
yes,
people who were, I had always heard will love the people that are unlovable. And there was a man named
yeah,
Jesus that would love me, and I hated me. who loved me? No one
Yes.
was loving me anymore. I'd burnt every bridge
Yeah.
known to man, and so when I walked in, I found love and acceptance. And when I found a growth group of incredibly amazing, beautiful humans that I'm still really close with today. And I would go to these Bible groups and they fed me when I couldn't feed myself. Like
Yeah.
I'm in recovery and I'm the brokest I've ever been. And
Yes.
so I was starting to get some visits with my kids. And so in order to feed them one night when they come over, I went without a night. And so what would happen was that my friends on that growth group night would all feed me and look after me and take me out and to do normies things that I've got on my normies bucket list, like going to the
Yeah.
theatre or going hiking or taking me out for lunch and coffees and all these things that I'd longed to do with friends, but I was so consumed by drugs, it was even just a pipe dream, So
Yeah.
I do those things. I go to book readings and poetry readings and book signings, and I do those things that I never thought were possible. And I've got a life beyond my wildest dreams, But there's so much
The
work that I
the
still,
gift of recovery, isn't it?
yeah, those gifts,
To
and
be able to do those normie things and be a valued member of society. Tell me about. We'll start to wind up pretty soon, but tell me about. You mentioned that you've got this great job that allows you to fly around the country. What industry do you work in now?
Yeah, so funny enough, I work in mental health, and I started.
Surprise.
I started. It's really interesting. So I did H&I. And I did service at a meeting and during COVID, and so I was helping with online stuff. And anyway, what I was in contact with a local rehab, and so the ops manager there asked me to come down. We'd been developing rapport, and he asked me to come down and have a conversation. And I'd been searching for a job in a house for a really long time, and he asked me to come for a visit, and next minute I've got a job being a support worker. And I remember saying to him, I just
Great.
want someone to give me a chance. Like, I'd applied for
Yeah.
jobs, but because I didn't have industry experience, no one wanted to hire me. But because I was doing
Mm.
service through NA and supporting the rehab that way, he already knew me. And so when this
Yeah.
job opportunity come up, he's like, yeah, like we'll give you that chance. And I started, working as much as I could. And then I got my kids back at the same time. And then I started
Yep.
university all at once. And I'm still doing that
Mm.
university degree, mind you, 5 years later after COVID. And so that
Yeah.
progressed, right? So then I went on and worked at, a new mental health wellbeing local that opened up as a peer wellbeing navigator, sharing my experience and recovery with other people. But
Yep.
then another position come up in the Gippsland area working suicide prevention and community engagement. And I walked in there going,
Wow.
I have no idea about suicide. I have no idea
Yeah.
about that. And when I sat there and I really looked at it, I went, oh my God, my life has been one big suicide attempt. And my life is full of
Yeah.
bereavement of very close friends that have suicided. And so,
Yes.
and during COVID, I would get phone calls from people that were saying, I want to end my life. And I remember ringing one of my church friends and saying, how do I support my people? They're dying. And so he gave me
Yeah.
mental health first aid over the phone. And one of the joys of my
Yes.
job is that I'm able to now book training for people to go do mental health first aid. I actually have people being trained today and next week. And that is one of those give backs that was so precious and so close to me because I was
Yeah.
able to support other people through a training that saved my life during COVID and saved, other
Yes.
people through that experience. And, so I go across Gippsland from Mallacoota down to Wonthaggi, having conversations with people about mental health over food. I was seconded to Queensland to open up the Medicare mental health centres. I just got back from Perth from doing the Suicide Prevention Australia conference, where I actually got
Wow.
a bursary off the back of my own lived experience. So it wasn't for work, but I used my story, and they gave me all access, all everything paid for. So this
That's
is
amazing.
another God job. Like, this is how God shows
Yeah.
up in my life, because my story
Mm.
helps other people. That's why I share it. So even though I'm
Yeah.
gifted with all these amazing things, it's so that I can amplify the kingdom of heaven and help people stuck in the darkness, because one of the things I want to do is take people from the gates of hell to the kingdom of heaven by sharing that and telling them that Jesus is real, God saves, but there's a way out. There really is a
Yes.
way out, and that's that point of surrender. Whatever that looks like for the person, for me, I call it God.
That's so beautiful. I would love to, don't have the time now, but at some point, as I was preparing for this conversation, I was thinking about it being Men's Mental Health Week
Yeah,
and the effect that suicide has on my exact demographic, that it is the uh, highest mortality area of people my age, of 18 to 44. And as we know, men have a three times more likely to die of suicide than females. Not that that matters, but also that in cases of substance misuse, which
yeah.
is what we're talking about today, that suicide increases by 5 times,
Yeah.
which is incredible.
It is. And it's a really good point that you've touched on there, because I'm all about advocating for men's mental health. I'm in the throes of some discussions now with different suicide prevention agencies. But, one of the experiences that I when I was going through my family court stuff, and then after that, child support, I can understand every single reason why men do suicide over these circumstances.
Mm,
I'm not going to go into the whole systematic thing, but the systematic abuse that
yeah,
happens and what happens as
yeah,
a result of manipulation and coercive control over that being used as pawns in relationships, and to tear people down, particularly men. And I don't.
yes,
I could go into that, and it could be, a lot, but I see why they suicide every day, and it's so
mm,
heartbreaking knowing that a system that's meant to help is actually causing more harm than it ever could do any good. And I know
yeah,
there need to be systems in place, but what I saw was the other side of what a man would experience. And I'm not saying that,
yes,
to diminish what their experience looks like, but I feel like I got that unique perspective to be able to understand.
yeah,
I get it. Now let's make some real
yeah,
change about how to support men through that. And there are
mm,
discussions about to do that right now. And I am all for the men's health movement and to be able to get more mental health support, because you're right, it is the highest demographic with the least resourced, and it needs to change.
yeah. Thank you for advocating for that. It means a lot to me,
Yeah,
and I've got experience, like I've got lived experience in that space as well, and it's very heartwarming to know um, that we've got a strong woman in our corner as well. So thank you.
thank you. Thanks, Jim.
Finally,
Yeah.
do you have any final words of encouragement for anyone that's new in recovery or thinking about sobriety in general?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, a couple of things. The old put God first and you'll never be last. But I want you to know that recovery is possible. It's a day at a time. It's that your story isn't over yet. You can rewrite the ending. And I remember hearing that in my addiction. And I'd heard that a million times, but that last time that I heard it was like lightning that struck my head, and every day I'm giving a new opportunity to change it, but I have to keep coming back and I have to keep doing the work. And so for me, that is, putting God first, going to meetings, and just keep coming back when I don't want to go. When you don't want to go is when you
Yeah,
need to go the most. So, I'll end on that, the gifts of recovery keep coming. my story is unique. Not everybody gets their children back. I'm not going to profess that they do, but I demonstrated change. And so the courts want to look at you are demonstrating and proving that you are able to do that back, and go to any lengths to make sure that you don't pick up and use again, because, you know, those things can really happen. I'm living proof that it does. So thank you so much, James, for allowing me to come on today and being able to share my truth. This is my truth, and that is with God at the center of it. So thank you.
Thanks, Emma. I am absolutely blessed and privileged to hold this space for you today. Thank you for sharing so openly, and God bless you.
God bless you too, my friend. Have a blessed day.
Thanks, Emma. Bye.
Bye.